Hi, and welcome to our show. You're watching Spice of Life with Michelle Suk. In today's program, we bring to you several different and spicy segments.
Welcome to a very special face-to-face segment, and I'm here in Canberra, and with me is Professor Brij Lal, who is a professor at Australian National University, head of Pacific and Asian Studies.
Yes.
Welcome to our segment, Professor.
Thank you.
There's so much I want to talk to you about, Professor Lal, but today we are pushing for a bit of time, so we're just going to confine ourselves with a very important topic, which is displacement of farmers in Fiji. I understand you are from Mombasa, and in my last film I made in Fiji, once our farmers, I did talk to displaced farmers from Mombasa. But since then, more has happened. Please tell me a bit more about that.
Well, thank you. There's a huge process of internal displacement taking place in Fiji. A number of cane leases have not been renewed, and parts of Vanuatu and Langa Langa, Daku, Wainikoro, Nangingi have emptied. And a lot of these people find temporary homes in squatter settlements around Suva, Nassori, Lamy area, starting from scratch all over again, in strange places among strange people. And one of the things that's most unfortunate is that many of these Lambasa people are not welcomed in Suva and in other areas in Viti because these are people prepared to do any job at any price so that they can feed themselves and educate their children. And I think that this is a very, very sad development, this whole process of internal displacement and migration of people.
Professor Lal, first, I'm amazed that this is happening in Fiji. Please tell us, why is it happening in Fiji?
Well, you see, the leases under ELTA began to expire in 1997 under the 30-year lease. And many of these leases were not renewed, either because Fijian landlords wanted themselves to enter cane cultivation or because of some political reason. Without land, there's nothing much they can do. Opportunities for employment in Lambasa are very, very few indeed. And so, people send their children to Viti Levu for education and eventually join them there as well. I see this as a first stage in a long process of migration. Initial displacement, and then from when they come to Suva, Nassori, Nasunu, wherever, they will hope to educate their children, and the children, they hope, will migrate. And eventually, the parents will hopefully join them as well. So what we are seeing is the kind of migration that took place in India in the 19th century. We see a repeat of that in a different kind of a way. The same anxiety, the same sense of helplessness, and people leaving, hoping for better opportunities.
These people, you say, they've migrated from Mombasa. They are taking any jobs which are on offer. They're living in squatter settlements, but they still are hoping to educate their children and get them out of the country. How will they do that?
Well, I think our history is very clear on that. Our parents educated us because they wanted to spare us their experience of indebtedness and hard life. And what is happening, we come from that kind of background with that kind of mental attitude that education is the passport to prosperity. It's very difficult. It's very hard. I've met many of these families. They have difficulty putting 3 meals on the table. Nonetheless, despite all of that, they still save enough somehow, somewhere, to educate their children. And I've seen young children, in class 8, class 7, washing cars during weekends, selling vegetables, working as hired hands. Whatever they can get, it all goes towards buying books and uniforms and the education of children.
Let's still talk a bit about the parents. I spoke to several farmers from Lambasa during my shooting, and one of the person who came from Lambasa, and he lived in a squatter settlement in Nandi, and he almost cried when he said, my life is not worth living. It's better to die than live like that. Having said that, he was working for about $40 a week, but he was still educating his children.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is the history, this is the experience of the Indo-Fijian community. Parents prepared to sacrifice everything to educate their children. I mean, no father, no parent wants to see their children suffer, to go through the hardships that they have gone through. And you know, despite all the hardships and the anguish and the frustration and the poverty, despite all of that, there is a sense in which, there are certain values that the community really places a great deal of store by, and education is one of them.
But still, I can't understand. Fiji, you have been to Fiji many times. I've been to Fiji many times. It's a beautiful country, endowed with natural resources. How can this sort of tragedy happen in Fiji?
That's the great ironic thing. Here is a country of 800,000 people, talented, educated, country full of natural resources, but it is the kind of history, the divided history that we have had over the last 100 years, when one segment of the community was basically told that you accept a subordinate place in the life of this country, and that's only then you will be able to live here. And it's that sense of lack of belonging, that sense of made to feel unwanted. It's a great tragedy, because Fiji is big enough for all of us.
Definitely. And you mentioned one of the reasons these people, farmers, are evicted is perhaps because the landowners want the land for themselves. But my research has shown, I've been to many places in Lautoka, Nandi, and Ba, the land which has been taken off our Indo-Fijian farmers are lying idle.
Oh, yes. In most cases, they revert to bush. In some cases, what the landlords want is to reclassify that land, from agricultural to residential or whatever. But the economy suffers, the country suffers, the sugar industry is in the doldrums. So the uncertainty of renewal of leases is one problem. The imminent expiry of preferential access to the European Union is another problem. The collapsing infrastructure of the mills is yet another problem. So the industry with which our people were associated for over a century is in decline. And unfortunately, our leaders did not have the foresight to encourage diversification, to face this eventuality that one day, we will have to face the fact that leases will expire, that preferential access to the European Union will go. So what were they doing?
We will talk to Professor Lal in depth on many occasions, hopefully, but to pursue those questions. But for now, I read somewhere that in the Asia-Pacific region, Fiji is the most expensive place to live. On the other hand, these displaced farmers are working for about $30 to $50 a week. How can they survive?
Survival is it's impossible to imagine. When you go to some of these places, as I have, in tiny corrugated shack, the parents, the children live cook their food, sleep. It's a kind of very, very, wrenching experience, wrenching experience. They can't afford anything more.
Professor Lal, I went to a place in near Karavi, Rabi, I think, and there were 13 families, displaced families living there. There was no electricity, there was no running water, and all 13 families were getting water from a little hole dug in the ground.
That's a fairly common experience, unfortunately. But I think that, again, I don't despair, because when I look at where we have come from, with the indentured experience, I think the determination of our people to improve themselves is certainly there. So I don't think this is going to be, something that the children will necessarily go through what their parents are going through now. I certainly have hope.
I'm also hoping as well, Professor Lal, about 120,000 Indo-Fijians have left Fiji, and today we number about 250,000 in the diaspora. Some of them, have done very well. How can our people who are outside in the diaspora help these unfortunate people in Fiji?
Well, I think it's very important first to understand that we can never sever the links with the place where we are born. I've heard some people say that I live in Australia now and Fiji doesn't mean much to me. That's not my feeling or my sense. I think that already remittance is playing a huge part in the economy of Fiji. It is rivaling tourism. And a lot of that comes from people living overseas. I know many families which provide scholarships to children, build temples and mosques, contribute to community projects, and that is also important and much needed. I think that those of us who are in a more privileged position have an obligation and a responsibility, not only to Indo-Fijians, but I think to Fiji as a whole. To make sure that the poverty is reduced, that our children have opportunities that we have had in the past, and to live happy and useful lives.
Professor Lal, I know you have given us a lot of time today. You have got other engagement. We have touched on some great topics today. And I would like to invite myself again over here one day.
Most welcome. Most welcome.
Where we are going to talk on other issues, and with people such as you who are prominent Indo-Fijians in the diaspora, pushing for some social justice for our people, not just Indo-Fijians, but the whole Fijian community. I'm sure we're going to get somewhere soon.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, that's all from Canberra here, and back to you, Michelle.
Thanks for watching our program today. For more information on Spice of Life, please contact Satish Rai. Well, folks, that's all for today. We'll see you next week, and it's goodbye from my team and myself.